Hello, thank you for tuning in. My name is Stuart and I'm the unrepentant atheist. And today, what I'm going to be talking about is threshold for belief and drawing false equivalencies. So, this is something which I see quite a lot of, not just with random Christian apologists, but actually also a lot of people in general. So I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but first of all, I would just like to address something which somebody brought up in a comment, that my videos essentially are adding nothing new to the debate, nothing new to the bank of knowledge which we've got on the subject of atheism. And I'd be the first to concede that it was never my intention to present something new, because I'm not a scholar, and I mean, even if I was a scholar, most of the scholars out there, by and large, are not presenting anything new. And if we only had substantially new material on YouTube, there'd be no atheist experience, there'd be no talk heathen, because how often do you hear something which is principally new on the atheist channels and indeed many of the debates which you watch? So I'm not doing it to present something new. So the main reason that I do this is because uh, there are zillions and zillions of Christian channels out there. And I think the more atheists, the more sort of everyday atheists like me, not sort of superstar, like Matt and other atheists who are high profile, but the more of people like me who are atheists who come onto YouTube, make videos explaining why they don't believe, why they find Christian apologetics weak, etc., the better. Because there may be people out there who are wavering, and if they think that the mainstream, the vast majority, is for Christianity, they might erroneously think that it gives more weight to Christianity, and they might not want to join the minority of atheists who are posting content. So the more of us that are out there actually posting content, and the more discussion there is going on, the more likely I think that we're going to persuade some of these people to come over to our side. And I never expect to see religion vanish in my lifetime, but it's an ongoing battle. And the less religion there is, and the fewer people who believe in any kind of religion, in my opinion, um, is much is going to be a much better world. Okay, so let me move on. Yeah. So in terms of threshold for belief, what is my threshold for belief? I feel that I've got quite a high threshold for entertaining a belief in something. I require quite a lot of justification depending on the claim. Of course, mundane claims I'm more likely to believe uh, simply on somebody's words. My friend tells me he had 2 fried eggs for breakfast. I'm likely to believe him without need for any further evidence because it's a mundane claim, it's an everyday claim, it's very believable. So there's no need really for any more. However, if he tells me he ate 50 eggs for breakfast, like in Cool Hand Luke, then I'm probably going to be a little bit doubtful, and I'm going to want to see some evidence. If I see him vomiting and I see half-digested eggs coming out while he's vomiting, that would constitute more evidence, but not conclusive evidence in terms of justifying my belief. So, yeah, there are different types of claims, obviously, as you know, and that's one of the reasons why we atheists have trouble accepting any of the Christian supernatural claims. But let me just move on and say that, as I mentioned before, it's not only in um, everyday Christian apologetics on YouTube that I see this. I've seen it in my life with people who I don't know whether they're Christians or not, but on other topics. For example, I was talking to a lady friend a few months ago, and she was telling me about this amazing program that she picked up on YouTube called Amazing Aliens. No, sorry, Ancient Aliens. The program was amazing. She said, "Yeah, Ancient Aliens." Now, I'd never seen it. I'd sort of heard of it, but I sort of dismissed it as just sort of clickbait, and I, I mean, it didn't really sound to me like it was credible at all because um, we don't have any confirmation that aliens have visited this planet. So, in what sense there could be ancient aliens, I've no idea. But, however, she was telling me about the pyramids and she'd watched Ancient Aliens. And she said to me, and she looked at me and she said, after watching this program, Stuart, I am utterly convinced that aliens built the pyramids. And I said, you mean you're certain? She said, yes, I'm absolutely certain. I said, well, what evidence was presented that could, give you that sort of 100% degree of certainty? And she said, well, how else could they have built it? How else could they have known true north? How else could they have got these huge 6-ton blocks to the top of the pyramid? And the thing is, I mean, I probably shouldn't have said it to her, but I did say, you realize that's a logical fallacy. It's an argument from ignorance. Just because you can't work out how they did it, you automatically think that another explanation has got validity, and it doesn't. Well, she sort of didn't speak to me for a few weeks, and I realized that this sort of kind of reasoning and debunking is probably best kept online, really, and not in my personal friendships, because it was some time before she would speak to me again. But she did say to me, uh, she explained something about ancient aliens, and she said, "Well, there are scholars on there, and it's not just some enthusiast who's put together a program. It's quite credible. There are scholars on there. They're going over the evidence. They're commenting, and it just seemed to me very plausible and most likely that aliens actually built the pyramids, because I don't believe that the Egyptians could have actually done it. They didn't have the technology. They didn't have the knowledge." And she asked me to look at the program, as she said, with an open mind. Okay. Um, I mean, an open mind for me has always got to be a critical mind. It doesn't mean that you open the top of your head and you let any nonsense in. No, that's not how it works. So I went to YouTube and I did look at little snippets here and there. I couldn't seem to find a whole episode on the pyramids, but I did watch enough of it to realize that it was quite a sort of sensationalist kind of presentation. And I looked up the so-called academics, and no, they're not academics. They're mainly journalists. They're people who've got irrelevant degrees in terms of Egyptology. And I think one of them got an archaeology BA, but he hadn't taken it any further. He'd even dropped out. I'm not even sure if but he went into journalism, and they were journalists. And no, they're not experts. They're just really giving their opinion, and they're working towards a conclusion in this sensational narrative. Completely misleading, and in my value, it's no evidence at all. And to even a half critical mind, uh, you could not conclude from this program that the aliens have built the pyramids. So I never did come back to her about that, because I didn't want to. I mean, if she's happy believing that and she gets something out of it, that's fine. It's pretty harmless. It doesn't really matter. And in my personal friendships, I want to keep friends, not lose them. So yeah. So there was that example. There was also my best friend, who unfortunately is a conspiracy theorist, and he's been like that for how long? 10 years. It's my fault. I gave him a book. I think in the early '90s, I think it was, or mid '90s. Somebody had lent me a copy of The Robots' Rebellion by David Icke, and I read it. Actually, I was fairly impressed, because in the early days, David Icke, he wasn't going with I mean he wasn't going crazy with all this lizard stuff and all the other conspiracy theories. And he basically had the view that um, humanity has become a collection of robots, and we've been made that way by the people who are milking us, taxing us, and exploiting us, you know, which I think a lot of people sort of accept. And it's not a conspiracy theory as such. It's quite obvious that society is skewed in favor of the super wealthy, but let's not get into that. But I don't believe in conspiracy theories, and but he went from this, and he started following Ike, and then the Masons, the Illuminati, and oh my God, he's a flat earther, and he's into aliens as well. He believes that the human race was put here by aliens. And I did say to him recently, "Why do you believe this? Where are you getting your information?" And he said, "Well, there are people on the internet who talk about it, and there are some people there who've got special knowledge about different dimensions and aliens, and you know." And he was referring to the Bible, um, the the giants in Genesis, I think, that they were actually aliens. And oh my God, it was so convoluted and everything. And I said, "Well, why do you believe all this? Because you haven't really got any concrete evidence." And he said to me, "Stuart, I believe it just like if you told me that you went to a restaurant last night and had a pizza, I would believe you." And I said straight away, "Well," I said, "not all claims are the same. You're drawing a false equivalency there, because it's quite a mundane, believable claim that I went to a restaurant last night and had a pizza. It's an everyday thing that people do. It's not an extraordinary claim, and your standard of belief on that could just be my say-so, because it's not a worldview altering kind of supernatural claim. It's just a fairly mundane, straightforward thing. Whereas what you're claiming is that there's this super race of giants who engineered human beings and put them on the planet." Now, you've got to see that those two claims require different kinds of evidence. And he kind of went a bit silent for a while, and he couldn't really come back on that and answer that. But this guy is in his mid-60s. He was a college lecturer, very well educated, and yet he's coming out with fallacious nonsense like that. And it's actually quite hard for me to believe that he could make such a basic mistake, that he's prepared to accept fantastic claims merely on simply reading about it on the internet and really doing no further research. And another one of his is that there's a soul. He's not a Christian. I'm not exactly sure whether he believes in God or not, but I think that for him, his God is these aliens who put us here. Yeah, and of course he's a flat earther, and again, it's all stuff he's read on the internet, and he's not actually going out there and researching all the debunking. And I've debunked him many times. I send him emails and point out that I don't want to digress into that, because that's a whole story and it's ongoing. But he did email me, and he said he takes my point about false equivalencies, and he's not going to make me a party any further to the special information that he's got, that he's researched and that other people have researched very deeply. And I thought, well, fantastic, good. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it unless you've got proper evidence. I don't want to hear any of this stuff. So anyway, that's coming back to the threshold of belief. So we got false. He's drawing false equivalencies between different types of claims, and I've been over this near the start of the video, that there are different types of claims and they require different standards of evidence. And my threshold for believing something is proportion to the type of claim it is. So I need more evidence. I need stronger evidence. The more fantastic the claim is, the more mundane the claim, less evidence will do. And I think that's a fairly sound way of doing things. And I like to think that with that in mind, I will avoid believing false things, and that I will have proper, reasonable justification for all my beliefs. And if I've rejected something, I will have rejected it for good reason. So that is the standard that I follow. But from what I've observed, there are very few people out there that I've spoken to who have got the same standard. and people are holding all sorts of absurd beliefs simply because they haven't got a good yardstick for measuring whether a claim is likely to be true or not. They draw these false equivalencies, and they haven't got a high threshold for believing in something. They haven't got a requirement to have strong evidence when they've got a substantial claim which in a way contradicts reality, like a miracle. I remember sitting in a church. I mean, I wasn't a Christian. There was a concert on. I love church music, requiems, that type of thing. And there was a man sitting next to me holding a Bible. And he said to me, "Do you believe in the miracles as presented in the New Testament?" Now, I wasn't so much into all this in those days. I was there for the music, and I wasn't a Christian. I wasn't a believer, but I wasn't like a sort of staunch atheist like I am now, with all the arguments and everything, or with all the reasons for rejecting evidence and rejecting claims. And I sort of shrugged my shoulders. I said, well, I'm not really too sure because, they're stated in the book. And then I said to him, what about you? And he said, oh, yes. He said, I believe them, absolutely. I've got no trouble in believing them at all. And I didn't really think too much about it. I just sort of shrugged my shoulders and said, well, I don't believe it, but if you want to believe it, that's fine. So there was an example of somebody who was believing in miracles, events which contradict everything we know about reality, simply because he already holds an erroneous belief and an unjustified belief, in my opinion. In other words, in God, and that the Bible is somehow to be relied upon for narrating truthful events which we can be sure happened in the past. He believes in the authority of the Bible. Naturally, therefore, is the reason why he believes in the miracles. So he would need to go back. He would actually need to go back and examine his belief in God and find that the claim that the Bible is the word of God or inspired by God or in any way an authority to be trusted is actually false. So I've seen it. I've seen it a lot, and I've spotted it many times, and I'm listening. Since I got into skepticism and everything else, I can spot these things very quickly, even in everyday life. Like I told you about this lady with the aliens, ancient aliens. In the past, I would have said, "Oh, really? Is that right? Is that right? Oh, I see." And I wouldn't have gone out of my way to really critically look at it. But I'm glad that I do now, and I hope that you will as well, because holding all these unjustified beliefs is basically wrong. I think. I don't think that it can possibly do you any good. Okay, it might make you feel good, but you're living in a false reality if you believe these things without a good justification. So that's it, really. Let's keep our threshold for belief proportioned to the type of claim. Yeah, and that's where all the Christians and all the theists fall down, because they've got a fantastic claim, i.e. there's an all-powerful God who, if he exists, it will affect all of us. And because he's so powerful, it's such a fantastic claim, and it needs more evidence than anything you could possibly find in a book. I can't imagine what kind of evidence it would take for me to believe in an all-powerful God. I really can't. I mean, look, if something materialized here in front of me, that would be actually quite impressive. Whether that would be sufficient reason if an angel appeared and said, hey, there is a God, and you could all see it as well. And of course I could have faked it. So it might be evidence for me, but it wouldn't be evidence for you if I saw it. But then again, there could be another explanation. I might be hallucinating. So fantastic claims require fantastic evidence. And I can't imagine really what would lead me to conclude that there is a God. But it's not my job. It's Christians and Muslims out there who are making the claim, and it's their job to present me with the evidence. It's not my job to say what kind of evidence it is. As Christians often say, well, what kind of evidence do you need? And like it's my job. It's like people who believe in the Loch Ness monster. And, they show me a photo. I say, well, that could be fake. Well, what kind of evidence do you need? I say, well, drain Loch Ness, show me the monster, have biologists analyze it and confirm that it's real, and that would be a good start. Okay, so I think my point is well made. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and thanks for visiting my channel. And if there's something you'd like me to talk about, leave it in the comments. And I hope you'll have. It's Saturday now. It's Sunday tomorrow. If you watch it today, I hope you'll have a good Sunday. Otherwise, be happy and be safe.